With Dynamite in the books and Revolution this Sunday, this was the AEW Crossroads edition. So we saw big things like the debut of Shaquille O'Neal in the ring. We also saw the first appearance of the Big Show in AEW. And then we also got finalizations for the match card for Revolution. So without further ado, I'm Kevin Jones, the Disciples of Wrestling, and it's time for me to break this thing down. So, our opening match of the night, it is Cody Rhodes and Red Velvet versus Jade Cargill and Shaq. Now, starting off, we see Shaq and Cody Rhodes go face-to-face and one-on-one, where literally Shaq is throwing Cody around. I mean, the guy has, is definitely over a foot on Cody, and he's just literally throwing this guy around, chucking him, and then he has these nice wicked chops to just take out the breath of Cody Rhodes. And then we actually see, while he's dominating Cody in their corner, Jade Cargill actually tags herself in. And then we see the matchup of Red Velvet and Jade, where we saw Jade's strength and power against the quickness and athleticism of Red Velvet. Now, for the most part, Jade was just dominating. Her power was just too much for Red Velvet. And for the most part, I mean, they couldn't really do much. Jade and Shaq's just natural and gifted ability was just overwhelming the technique that Cody Rhodes and Red Velvet had. And then, of course, while Jade is getting a lot of her offense in, we see her go over to Cody's corner and actually just smears him in the face. And of course, he's heated up, so he goes, and because of the fact he can't hit Jade, he goes after Shaq and just hits a running knee strike on Shaq, bringing him down off the apron. And then when we see him go near the crowd area, we see Austin Gunn pick up a steel chair and just hit Shaq on the back. And very quickly, Austin Gunn realized that was a very, very big mistake. As Shaq turns around, just takes out the Gun Club, throwing him from the crowd area into the ringside area and just taking them out. And then QT tries to get in the middle of it, and he just chokes QT Marshall. And then, of course, while this is going on, we see Cody and Jade try to break things up. But that means, where's Red Velvet? She's up top and she hits a big moonsault on Jade and Cody. So we bring it back into the ring where we see actually that Jade has taken the offense back over again. And she goes outside to the ringside area and goes at the bottom of the ring to set up a table. And then, of course, Red Velvet comes out, gets some offense, and tries to, what it looks like she was going to stop Jade at first. She ends up just bringing Jade back into the ring, and she sets up a second table on the outside of the ring. Now, as all of this is going on, we actually see Jade hit a near fall on Red Velvet as she ends up getting broken up by Cody. And then, of course, Cody starts to go back after Shaq. And then Shaq he's actually where the tables are set up. So Cody has the awareness, of course, and he runs and he hits a diving just an outside dive on Shaq to where they both land on the doubles tables that are set up. So what does this mean? As Jade is just confused and she's worried for Shaq, that means Red Velvet sets her up for the spear with a tribute to her mentor, Miss Brandy Rhodes, and hits a near fall. And then, of course, this goes back to Jade, where Jade hits the chicken wing face buster for the win, and that's a huge win in Jade's first debut match, and it's a huge win for, unfortunately, an injured Shaq. And after the match, we see how injured he actually is as he gets rushed to an ambulance. And we see Tony Schiavone go to at least get some answers to see what the condition is of Shaq. And as he's opening up the ambulance door, we actually see that Shaq is gone. He's nowhere to be found. The same ambulance that he was just put in before the commercial break. After the commercial break, he's nowhere to be found. Our second match of the night is actually Rey Fenix and Pac in action as a tag team. This is the first time we see a glimpse of any tag team action with these two involved, and they simply dominated. Their athleticism, speed, and experience was just outmatched as they wrestled these jobbers. We saw Rey Fenix, as soon as the bell rings, we see him go to the outside and just take out the guy that was on the apron while Pac starts off the match. And then, of course, Pac just simply dominates. And then we see him tagging Rey Fenix and they hit wicked tag team combinations on this guy. And then we see as the other guy gets back up on the apron, we see Rey Fenix walk the tightrope as he just runs across the top rope to hit another kick on this guy, taking him off the apron once again. And then we see Pac hit the corkscrew dive on that very same guy, and then he runs into the ring, and then Phoenix sets up the guy that was inside the ring that started the match, sets him up for Pac as Pac hits the 450 splash, and then we see Rey Fenix hit a tombstone variation for the win in very dominant fashion. So next up, we get the Inner Circle press conference. So of course we know that on Sunday we will see Chris Jericho and MJF challenge the Young Bucks for the AEW Tag Team Championships at Revolution. So of course, before this match even happens, MJF and Chris Jericho want to get in some nice needed media. So we see some nice faces come along that we know well in the door, and it is Conrad Thompson. We see an appearance and representation of Barstool Sports, and we also saw Mr. EB, Eric Bischoff. So throughout this, of course, they were asked about if Sammy Guevara would be returning to the Inner Circle. We also see them get asked about the attack on Papa Buck from last week. And this made for some very entertaining stuff, honestly. This was phenomenal to watch. I love seeing MJF and Chris Jericho like this. And I'm glad we actually saw them develop more and more chemistry among one another, because, of course, throughout the time we saw MJF and Sammy Guevara bickering, we actually saw Chris Jericho really just, for the most part, shut up MJF in very, very nice fashions. But when Eric Bischoff asked the question, what made you guys want to do this anyway? Because it wasn't smart to do what you guys did, because all it did is just rile up the Young Bucks to fire them up ahead of y'all's match. And as it looks like Chris Jericho and MJF are about to answer, we get the Young Bucks coming out, and they are furious. They come out and they talk about the inspiration that their dad is to them, and without their dad, pretty much the Young Bucks wouldn't exist, and neither possibly would AEW. He talks about if AEW didn't exist, MJF would still be unemployed and probably be waiting on a callback from a stupid sitcom somewhere. And then, of course, if AEW didn't exist, then Chris Jericho would probably be curtain jerking at the Performance Center. That was a nice little dig. And after Matt Jackson makes a statement, of course, we see ourselves a super kick party as the Young Bucks look to just wipe out the Inner Circle. We also see the Good Brothers come out to give them the assist. They actually set up Santana and Ortiz on the tables, and we saw a stereo dive from the Young Bucks taking out Santana and Ortiz, sending a message to Jericho and MJF. So our next match is FTR with Tully Blanchard versus the entire Jurassic Express. And FTR came out with swagger. I'm not going to lie to you. They all came out draped up in their robes, with Tully Blanchard wearing the 10 pounds of silver. And we also see that FTR is wearing the former tag team championships that we saw Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard win in Jacksonville. And of course, they had to come out in style. So they came out with also J.J. Dillon in their corner. Yes, it was phenomenal to see, and it was nice to see that we saw some nice Four Horsemen regimen lingering around. So as we start this match, we saw Jack Perry go crazy. Yes, he's going all over the place, hitting phenomenal moves, showing his amazing athleticism and the technical work that he's been working on, as he takes out not only Cash Wheeler, but he actually also takes out Dax Harwood in the process. But we saw the tide start to shift as J.J. Dillon hands Dax his shoe and knocks out Jack Perry for a near fall, actually. And then we see, of course, Jungle Boy gets zeroed out for the most part until he tags in Luchasaurus. And then Luchasaurus comes in and he just cleans house. He looks to actually use Marco's stunt and a military press to throw on top of Tully Blanchard. And we actually see the tail spin on Tully Blanchard to knock him out. And then we also see the Jurassic spin for a near fall. As this is going on, we actually see Jack Perry get tagged back in, but we also see Luchasaurus get taken out as Cash hits a tornado DDT. And then, of course, things break down when Marco Stunt hits a huge splash on top of Cash Wheeler when he looks to hit a German suplex pinned variation on Jack Perry. And then things just go crazy as Jurassic Express look to swift things back into their side. And then, of course, Luchasaurus goes to hit a Tope Suicida, and then a masked man hits him with a camera. So as this is going on, we actually see everyone else is down of Jurassic Express, and Luchasaurus gets set up with the triple pile driver. And we see FTR and Tully Blanchard get the win. After this, we actually see the boys celebrate, where the masked man is none other than the returning Shawn Spears. So all four of these guys are celebrating along with JJ Dillon. And we see approaching the stage, we see Arn Anderson. Yes, the same Arn Anderson that is the coach for the Nightmare family. He looks at JJ and he looks at Tully and he throws up the 4 as they had their little 4 horsemen reunion. I mean, all we were missing was Rick, but we know where he is right now. But outside of that, phenomenal and beautiful work, and where we actually see the 4 Horsemen tribute, and we see bright future ahead for Tully Blanchard and his boys and Tully Enterprises. So next up, we get the on-screen appearance of Paul White, formerly known as The Big Show. Yes, this is his first appearance since he has signed his contract to All Elite Wrestling. He comes out, of course. Tony Schiavone talks about their show, AEW Dark Elevation, that will be debuting on March 15th. And of course, in typical Paul fashion and in typical Big Show fashion, he makes a joke about jumping over to AEW, but talks about how happy he is and how it's nice to see a group of guys that are super hungry in the backstage area that put on phenomenal work in the ring. And he also talks about on Sunday, there will be a huge name that will be signing, and he has the tenure of a Hall of Fame caliber career, and he will be signing on Sunday at Revolution. And who knows, he might be that 6th member in the face of the Revolution ladder match. But I mean, what do I know? I'm not the guy with the scoop. It's Paul. But it's nice to see that he's there, and what a huge pickup to AEW that Paul White is, and there's no telling. We might see another huge pickup on Sunday. So our next match is the finals of the AEW Women's Title Eliminator Tournament, where we see Nyla Rose taking on Ryo Mizunami. And this is a phenomenal match, as we saw Ryo starting off. She just starts off very, very hot. She starts off taking out Nyla, and I've learned from this match that Ryo Mizunami is a very, very entertaining individual to watch. She reminds me a lot of Okada from NJPW and her entertainment aspect while she wrestles. But we actually see, while she's about to set up Nyla for a corner dive, we actually see Vicky Guerrero get involved, and we see Nyla Rose take advantage of that as she takes out Ryo Mizunami. And as this is going on, we actually see Nyla Rose get set up actually by Ryo when she gets back into it with a nice shoulder strike, taking out Nyla off the apron. And then we actually see Ryo actually trip up Nyla from the apron, and as she sets her up for the guillotine leg drop on the apron side. Now, this is actually how Ryo won her last match to qualify for the finals. But we actually see, as Nyla Rose is on the verge of getting counting out, we see her get back into the ring. And then we actually see Nyla get back into it as she ends up draping Ryo on the top rope, and she hits a diving knee strike. And that's how she won her last match. But we actually see Ryo kick out with a near fall. And as Ryo's getting up, we notice that these two both have to get very, very creative with their offense. And we see Ryo hit an exploder suplex on Nyla, and then Nyla sets her up on the top rope for a nice superplex from the top. Now we actually see these two both exhausted on the mat side, and we actually see Ryo hit her second win. She actually hits a phenomenal German suplex to set up for the spear, to set up for the guillotine leg drop for the win. So it's official. Ryo Mizunami will be challenging Hikaru Shida for the AEW Women's Championship at Revolution. Now after this, we actually see Hikaru Shida present Ryo Mizunami with the trophy. And as they go to shake hands, they just trade shots. Just friendly competition as these two trade shots until Hikaru Shida hits a big forearm strike to where Ryo Mizunami drops to her knee, leaving a phenomenal sight as she's standing tall with the AEW Women's Championship. So overall, I'm excited for this match on Sunday. I can't wait to see what these two both give us, as these two are both Juji fighters from Japan, and I can't wait to see the magic that these two both have. So after this amazing match, we actually see Tony Schiavone interview Sting. And Sting talks about how he appreciates Brian Cage for powerbombing him a few weeks back because it knocked off whatever remaining rust was still left on Sting from his ring hiatus. And now he says he's ready for this street fight on Sunday. And as he's talking about this, actually Ricky Starks come out from Team Taz saying that he's out on his own accord. He actually commends Sting and says that you proved me wrong. You actually do still got it. But I stick to what I said a few weeks ago when I said that you're no icon. And he slaps Sting in the face, and Sting's angry. He just goes off on Starks, literally manhandling Starks. And then he sets him up for the Stinger Splash, and then locks in the Scorpion Deathlock until big powerhouse Hobbs and Hook come out to actually ring up Starks from the Deathlock. And then we see Brian Cage come back, and he goes to take out Sting and set him up for another powerbomb until we hear the music of Darby Allin. Darby Allin comes out and aids Sting, and they take out Mr. Brian Cage and leave Team Taz for retreat ahead of their tag team street fight at AEW Revolution. So our next match is a match to qualify for the Face of the Revolution ladder match, where we get the Dark Order's number 10 against the Acclaim's Max Caster. And we actually see an even match for the most part, actually for all the match, where we actually see a nice brainback buster coming from Max, and then he goes to hit the Acclaimed, and then we actually see him miss as number 10 moves out of the way. But number 10 actually hits a nice power bomb on Max, but Max ends up getting his foot on the bottom rope to break up the pin. What we actually see where this finish comes to is Jack Evans comes out of nowhere and hits number 10 as he's draped over the middle rope with the Acclaim's boombox, to where Matt Caster actually picks up a pinfall victory. And as we actually see Jack Evans get back onto the ringside area and go back to backstage, we actually see Matt Hardy shake his hand and give him $4,200 in cash to pay him off. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the main event. And it is Matt Hardy and Private Party's Mark Quinn versus Dark Order's John Silver and Hangman Adam Page. Now, this starts off very fast-paced with John Silver and Mark Quinn, as John Silver's power game really overwhelmed Mark Quinn. Now, Mark Quinn tags out, and we actually see Matt Hardy as he starts to work over John Silver. We see a blind tag where Hangman Adam Page tags himself in for John Silver. As Hangman Adam Page gets in, Matt Hardy sees this and shoves John Silver into Hangman as he wants nothing to do with Page. Then he tags out to Mark Quinn, and then we see, of course, Mark Quinn and Hangman Adam Page tear it up for a little while. And then, of course, Hangman starts to get the momentum. And then we see Matt Hardy get tagged in, where we actually see John Silver get tagged back in. And, of course, we see the functioning of John Silver versus Matt Hardy, where Matt Hardy hits a big side effect on John Silver, where they're working over John Silver for the most part until really Hangman gets back in the match when Hardy's in, and when we see John Silver hit a standing sliced bread. So when John Silver tags in Hangman, we see Hangman go crazy as Mark Quinn gets the hot tag on his side, and we actually see these two go back and forth once again. And what actually it takes a misfire from Mark Quinn as he has Hangman stunned in the corner of him and Hardy, where Page ends up getting out of the way when Quinn goes for a diving boot and hits Matt Hardy instead. And then we actually see Hangman go for fallaway slam to hit an outside dive on Matt. And this is actually Hangman's first time getting his hands on Matt the entire match. So Hangman gets back into the match, and as he goes to take out Mark Quinn, he actually throws Mark Quinn into the corner of Matt Hardy and tells Matt to just tag him in. And instead of Matt tagging into the match, he actually goes off the apron to put Mark Quinn back into the match. And then as we see Mark Quinn start to work over Hangman Adam Page, we see Matt Hardy, of course, wanting to get into the match now since Hangman's already down. He sets up for the twist of fate, but Hangman counters as he hits a back suplex, and then he tags in Johnny Hungy as he goes in on Matt Hardy with a spear and then a fury of kicks, and then we actually see him finish with a brain buster for a near fall. Then, of course, we actually see the tag team genius of Hangman Adam Page and John Silver, as John Silver sets up Mark Quinn after he tags in Hangman Adam Page for the final sequence where Hangman ends up getting set up by John Silver with a huge high kick on Mark Quinn, to where we actually see a forearm strike from Hangman Adam Page. Then we see a nice step up enziguri from John Silver, to where we see a great pump up power bomb from Adam Page into the German suplex from John Silver into the buckshot lariat, where we actually see Hangman Adam Page staring down Matt Hardy as he pins Mark Quinn for the win. Now, after the match, as these two are celebrating, we actually see Matt Hardy attack both Hangman and John Silver with the microphone, telling him that it was actually his plan to let Hangman win, as he has a 6-0 record and he looks to get the entire check of this 6-0 record as ahead of their big money match, where of course the winner gets the entire first quarter earnings that they get from not only as AEW wrestlers but also in other merchandise. Now, as this is going on, we see the Dark Order come in for the retreat, and we also see all the tag teams of the Tag Team Casino Battle Royal reign out, and we get a great brawl at the end of the show. So overall, this was a great show, a phenomenal go-home show, as usual, as we get from AEW. But overall, a phenomenal show and a phenomenal Crossroads event, as I'm excited ahead of the pay-per-view of Revolution. But, of course, definitely check out Jordan's NXT recap. And if you guys like it, definitely hit that thumbs up button right there. If you guys want to keep up with our content, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe and hit the bell icon to get all notifications, and definitely share us to your friends and let them know what we got going on. But until next time, I will see you guys for the Revolution predictions. And until next time, I'm Kevin Jones of Disciples Wrestling. That's wrestling.